Bloodsport. Let's talk about Bloodsport real quick. Kadish, why don't you set the stage for us? What the heck is this movie all about?
So it's about a secret underground fighting tournament where the best martial artists from around the world come to find out who the best of the best are. And it's based off of a quote-unquote true story of the life of a gentleman named Frank Dux.
Dukes.
It's French. Dukes.
D-U-X. And basically, this is a guy who claimed that in the 70s and 80s, he was basically a ninja who secretly worked for the CIA and was formerly of the military. And according to him, he held all these world records in this secret underground fight club that he traveled the world as champion for. And he basically pitched this idea to Hollywood, and someone at Cannon Films thought it was a good idea to make it into a movie. And it was the first big starring role of Jean-Claude Van Damme, and who plays the character of Frank Dukes.
Like, put up your dukes.
Yeah, Frank Dukes.
Is that going to be the thing? He's going to say it wrong and we're going to say it right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And basically the movie is about this underground no holds barred fight club tournament that Jean-Claude Van Damme has to participate in. And he faces a series of very dangerous opponents in a ever increasing high stakes game of blood sports.
Right on. And I can't say if there is a theatrical version or a theatrical experience that I've had, because I was obviously far not born yet when this movie came out, and I don't remember the first time I saw it. So I don't know. Did any of you guys see it in the theaters?
No.
I don't remember.
You don't remember, Kadish?
Oh no, I've only ever seen this movie on home video.
Okay.
Yeah.
I might have.
Or TV, because it played a lot on TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my first experience with it was probably on TV, and then later I watched the actual movie. I probably rented it or something.
What year did it come out?
88?
I was born in 88.
I probably did see it.
You saw it in
I
theaters?
probably did. Yeah.
How old were you?
I was 18.
Oh, that would have been perfect for you.
That's when I graduated high school.
Yeah. Nice. I don't know what else to say about this movie. It's terrible.
How dare you?
How dare you, sir?
I'm sorry. It's just not good. I mean, it's fun and it's cheese, like 80 cheese fighting stuff. But it, like, if you put it up against any other movie that is like a AAA blockbuster movie, it just does not hold up. I mean, the best actor in this movie is Donald Gibb. 100%. He's got the best delivery of his lines. He's got the most realistic fight scene. He's the man.
What about the girl? I believed that she fell in love with him and didn't want to see him get hurt.
What about Forrest Whitaker?
Forrest Whitaker, yeah, young Forrest Whitaker was in this.
Yeah, I had forgotten he was in it. I
did
I go, whoa.
I like that scene where Jean-Claude Van Damme meets Donald Gibb for the first time.
Yeah.
And they're playing a video game.
Yep.
And there's that moment where they look at each other and they're like, did we just become best friends?
They're playing an arcade Street Fighter game.
No, it was a karate game.
Yeah.
And
The same thing, Street Fighter.
And they were like, hey, can you keep a secret? I'm here for a underground fighting tournament.
Yeah.
Don't tell
Oh my
anybody.
God, me too. Crazy.
We're all staying at the same hotel.
Yeah. He's like, aren't you a little old to be fighting in a tournament? And he's like, aren't you little to be fighting in a tournament?
All the one-liners in this
Yeah.
are fantastic.
You know, when Jean-Claude Van Damme was originally picked to play Frank Dukes was the fighting choreographer on set, and he said he's not in good enough shape to play me. And he made him go through like 3 months of specialized training in order to play him.
Wow. What an ego on that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't it come out that he was like a complete con artist?
Oh, he's a total sociopath.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, everything he's ever claimed has been complete fabrication.
Verified false.
Like he was never in the army. He didn't have any of those world records, like, at all. Never worked for the CIA.
We talking about Jean-Claude Van Damme?
No,
or-
I'm talking about Frank.
The real
I know, I'm
Frank.
kidding.
Frank Dukes.
Yeah.
The real.
But it's kind of funny because this was the movie that put Jean-Claude Van Damme on the map.
Right.
And the guy who produced this movie, Menahem Golan, he was an Israeli film producer, and he was the head of the Cannon Group, Cannon Films, which basically produced this movie. And the way that Jean-Claude got this part, because up to this point, he was a nobody. He'd been like in supporting roles.
He just was like running a gym.
something like that. He was doing all types of stuff, like delivering pizzas and stuff. And he was driving down La Cienega one day, and he saw Mannheim walking down the street with like a friend, and Jean-Claude Van Damme recognized him.
Didn't he pretend to know him?
Yes.
Okay.
So like what happened was he pulled over to the side of the road and got out. And do you guys remember that scene in Time Cop where the rollerblading purse snatcher, he like throws a kick that stops like 2 inches in front of his face?
Yeah.
So like he goes up to this big producing guy who's just walking down the street minding his own business and does that. He just throws a kick to his face where he's doing like the high split kick type thing. It stops like 2 inches in front of this guy's face, and he's like, Mannheim, I'm Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's like, you should put me in a movie. And
Wow.
And Mannheim was like, wow, that was really impressive. You know what? I like your moxie, kid. So like he went back to his office and he was like, is there a movie we can put?
Start looking through scripts, right?
Yeah. Is there a movie we can put this lunatic in? And they went through like a bunch of different ones until they settled on Bloodsport. And they were like, okay, put Jean-Claude Van Damme in Bloodsport. But the funny thing about this movie is that apparently the first cut of it was so bad that the same producer like just put it on a shelf, and he's like, I'm never releasing this movie.
It got shelved for like a full year, right?
Yeah, and basically, like the movie just didn't make any sense. And Jean-Claude Van Damme and the screenwriter kind of got together, and Jean-Claude Van Damme actually edited all the fight scenes in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, and so like basically he fixed all the fight scenes. So like they had all the fight scenes for this movie done, but the movie itself was just like a mess. And so they talked Mannheim to bring in this guy. His name was Michael J. Duthie, I think is how you pronounce it. And he was kind of the in-house fixer for Cannon Films, because Cannon was just known for like making these low-budget schlock movies. So like they had this guy on staff who would kind of come in and fix all the bad movies for them.
I'm a fixer.
Yeah. So like he was a really good editor who basically came in and he completely restructured Bloodsport from like the footage that they had and turned it into what it was. And so like when they did their next test screening, audiences loved it. But Mannheim was so convinced that Jean-Claude Van Damme was box office poison that he was like, maybe I'll put it in direct to video. And everyone's like, dude, you got like a big hit on your hands. He's like, no, I don't like Jean-Claude Van Damme. He's a loser. He's never going to amount to anything. And basically Mannheim had this big boner for this guy named Michael Dudikoff, who was in like a lot of different Cannon films at the time. I think he was in all the ninja films they ended up making.
Yeah,
stuff
that
like
name is very familiar.
Yeah, so like he originally wanted Michael Dudikoff for this role, but he was like too tall to play Frank Dukes. So basically Jean-Claude Van Damme got this role, and Mannheim just like had it in for Van Damme for some reason. He was like, I'm not going to release this thing. And they're like, why don't we do like a limited release and just see how it does? So they released it in 3 cities. I think it was like Seattle, San Diego, and Los Angeles. And that limited release made the movie's budget back and more just in those 3 cities. And so they're like, well, shit, maybe we should release it.
People love kung
wider.
fu movies.
So like they put it out there.
In the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they put it out there.
What else was
became
there?
a huge hit.
It's a lot of people's bread and butter, man. Those 80s action flicks, those over the top cheese, big strong dude.
I like how this
murdering
movie.
people.
I like how this movie like set the precedent for every single Van Damme trope.
Yeah.
It really did.
It did.
With the nut shots and the splits and the slow motion look on his face, as he, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that slow motion scream thing, silent scream thing.
I do that all the time.
It's like I remember my brother's like 4 years younger than me, and I remember him and all his friends. They do like Kumite matches out in the barn.
Kumite.
It was fun.
Kumite.
Can we talk about some of the fighters that he had to go
You should
up
be
against?
wearing your Kumite shirt.
I should be, but it's dirty.
It's got blood on it.
I bought it
I'm
before.
pretty sure that this movie might have had somewhat of a influence on the Ultimate Fighting kind of.
Well,
the
this
UFC?
was
Yeah.
UFC.
This was
Oh,
UFC.
for
before
sure.
UFC took
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, mixed martial arts. This is the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Bare knuckle.
I think they started UFC, broadcasting it, I think
Yeah.
in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Early 90s?
I mean, I'm sure it existed.
It was these mixed martial art type tournaments that
Yeah.
eventually led to becoming an organized sport.
So it's like, I remember this movie came out, and then I don't think it was too long after this movie came out, a couple of years maybe, that you see like UFC 1 and 2, which were literally no holds barred fights of these guys with these different techniques.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the Greco-Roman wrestler versus the Kung Fu champion, you know, and they were pretty cool. And there was no weight classes. You'd have like this 95-pound dude going up against this giant 400-pound sumo wrestler.
Yeah, it was literally anything goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some would say it's the purest form of mixed martial arts. Like nowadays it's too regulated almost.
Yeah, it was wild. I remember watching this.
Well, do you remember the scene in this movie where they were breaking bricks? And it was like, nobody's ever done that before.
The death touch.
He's
Death touch, yeah.
Donald Gibbs' character, he's like, see this one right here? I'm going to break that one. It's the one on top. He just smashes it.
But then like everyone's like unimpressed, so he takes one and breaks it with his head. Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, Donald Gibbs is the best character in this whole friggin' movie.
So that trick that they did in the movie, that was like a made up thing for the movie. I think whatever they called it is actually like some kind
touch.
of they had like a Chinese name for it, but whatever word they used was actually like some kind of like medical procedure or something.
Like this whole movie was just so thrown together. Like I remember reading a story about how originally like all the costumes for it, like they bought them at some local store in China while like on the location they were shooting at, and it was like silk pajamas. And Frank Dux was like, what are you kidding me? This isn't what we wore. And so like he basically bought a bunch of bike shorts and just like bedazzled them.
Yeah.
like put on like all the decorations and stuff and gave them to the actors, and he's like, here, wear this. But it's funny because in addition to this thing kind of being an inspiration for UFC, the movie itself, Bloodsport, was the inspiration for the game Mortal Kombat.
Right.
Originally, the company that made Mortal Kombat was hired to create a Universal Soldier game, and that, for whatever reason, fell through. But they already had all these like models and stuff done, and they were like, you know what? Let's just make a fighting game. And so like they based the character Johnny Cage on Jean-Claude Van Damme's character in Bloodsport, and you know they made him like this Hollywood star. But like if you look at the original Mortal Kombat, Johnny Cage's
absolutely him.
Yeah, Johnny Cage's outfit is the exact outfit Jean-Claude Van Damme wore, and stuff like that. So I mean, you know, it's kind of funny to say Bloodsport was like a big pop culture influence going forward into the 90s, but it really was.
Sure
It's undeniable. Even as much as I like to kind of like pick fun at it, but it inspired a lot of the culture in the 80s and 90s.
Also, this movie holds the world's record for longest flashback scene.
Really?
In a movie, yeah. It's
when he was training with his sensei?
It's like 10 minutes and 40 seconds long. And it's one of those things where it's like, you know, if the entire movie is not a flashback, it's just like a actual like flashback in a movie, this movie holds the record for the longest flashback.
Nice. So I wanted to talk about the fighters. I thought it was pretty interesting that like each country of origin had like its own fighting style. Like the French dude who was like basically a kickboxer, I think, but he had like some weird stance that he was doing. I thought the fighting styles were amazing. And then
they were all real.
They were all real, even
even the monkey guy,
the monkey dude. I was
that's Kung Fu monkey style.
Yeah.
Monkey style Kung Fu. Drunken monkey.
They actually didn't have any stuntmen on this movie. It was all 100%
and
just the actors.
That's something that I find fascinating when we did our, well, it was a long time ago now, but we did our The Matrix movie reviews and stuff like that and deep dive into that. And The Matrix was actually the trend center for actually putting actors into action movies and training them to look like they know how to fight. Before that, it was actual fighters just put into a movie,
right?
Which is a lot of times why the dialogue is kind of corny and the acting isn't that great, is because these people are legit fighters.
Actors.
Yeah, they're not actors. Mm-hmm. So when the Matrix came out, they kind of set a new trend, and that's the trend that we see today, where we have these big action stars that go and train for 3-4 months under some guy, and then they pretend like they know how to fight. But
what was interesting about the actors, they were fighters with their own particular fighting styles, portraying fighters with different fighting styles. And I thought that was really interesting. Yeah, like Chong Li, the character of Chong Li was a Kung Fu fighter. But he's played by, what's his name? Bolo Young. He does do Kung Fu, but his preference is actually Tai Chi. and Frank Dukes developed his own fighting style called ninjutsu, which was like ninja guerrilla warfare.
What a dork.
Yeah. Portrayed by Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's kickboxer or karate. No, he's not a
jujitsu?
kickboxer. It's, I want to say just karate.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just thought that was really interesting that there's like so many different fighting styles. And when I think they just like threw a bunch of fighters in a movie and they were like, well, just pretend like you do kung fu. And they're like, oh, I do jujitsu. That's completely different. It's the
You'll be
same.
fine. Nobody will know.
Nobody will know. Not for like 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. Until people start analyzing movies.
Yeah.
But also the music in this movie, it was done by that guy who did We Got the Touch from the Transformers movie.
I bet it was.
It was. And if you llisten to like the big...
To survive.
if you listen to that song, Fight to Survive, it sounds just like We Got the Touch. We got the touch.
Kumite.
It's a great montage song.
Montage. Yeah.
Montage. Yeah.
There were a lot of montages in this movie.
Was there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's tons. There's the training montage, the flashback. There's the actual fighting montage of when they were in the
Oh yeah,
sport.
I guess so.
Because they kind of just flash through a bunch of different fights while the other
It's
guys
not
are-
a good '80s movie if there's no montage.
Yeah,
It's just not.
it's got to be.
Surprising lack of boobs for an 80s movie.
Yeah.
Is there, well, I mean, there's man boobs.
Boobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got a lot of that flexing going on. That's a good gif. I got when I posted the picture of like we're doing Jean-Claude Van Damme podcast. Like a ton of people posted the gif of like the dude just flexing his chest, bouncing his tits back and forth.
What's the matter, sweetheart? Too pretty for you?
It's a great movie, man. It's so much fun. Like like on a technical level, if you want to talk about acting and editing and pacing and all that stuff, it's kind of a mess.
I love this movie.
But it's so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's like, it's such a guilty pleasure for so many people. I can't complain about it that much. Like I can tease.
Classic.
Yeah,
it's a
I'm
classic.
never not in the mood for this movie. Like
Oh.
you could just be like, I don't know what to watch. You want to watch Bloodsport? I'd be like, yes.
Yes.
Let me find my Kumite shirt.
Do you guys think it had that kind of Rocky Balboa underdog story for a little while, right? Because he lost the first fight.
actually, I was going to say that this movie is like a complete rip of Rocky IV.
Yeah.
like Rocky IV came out, I think, like 3 years earlier. And like if you look at the story to Rocky IV and this story,
the same
it's
one.
pretty much the exact same arc to it. So it wasn't a very creative
think
movie.
is-
I don't know. I've never really got that.
Every movie is that focuses on an underdog going up as a superior force is Mighty Ducks is the same thing as Rocky. Rocky is the same thing as Rocky IV.
Well,
I never
There's only
really. I
There's
never
that
really.
formula to it.
There's only 11 original stories,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So when you're talking about fighting stories and you want to have an underdog story so that the audience can attach to the main character.
I
and
never.
root for
I
them.
never thought of him as an underdog in this.
Really.
No. I've always thought of him as he trained for his whole life, and he was going to go over there and get that sword for his sensei. I don't think he ever thought of himself as an underdog.
But he had to prove himself because he doesn't look like a Tanaka.
Yeah. I mean, I've never thought of this movie
That's
as
a
an
good
underdog
point, though.
story.
I guess he did specifically train just to do this one thing for most of his life. I guess. So I guess that's a good point. He's not really an underdog, huh? I don't know when
It's like I'm a badass. None of these people know it, so I'm going to have to show it to him. But I don't think he ever questioned himself.
Technically, he wasn't training his whole life. He was basically allowed to watch the training his whole life. It wasn't until after the son died that Tanaka started training him.
and he mastered the skill of the split. I love that scene where Donald Gig comes in and he's sitting there like meditating and he's in his splits and Dog's like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah, he's like, you might want to have kids one day.
That's funny.
Also, the two guys sent to retrieve him, Forrest Whitaker and the older guy. I love how like their most intimidating move is to take out these massive tasers.
What? Yeah, what were those
size
things?
of-
Those
size
were
of a brick.
absurd looking.
1988 tasers.
Yeah.
They look like those oversized emergency flashlights that you put in the trunk of your car.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll pump you full of 50,000 volts.
You know what I thought was funny is
But that also started, speaking of tropes,
Lies, deception.
but lots of Jean-Claude Van Damme movies have tasers in them.
really?
So yeah. Time Cop.
Time Cop. Yeah.
What were you about to say, Alex?
I was gonna say the whole chase scene where they're chasing him down, trying to capture him because he's doing something highly illegal, and they're
that
trying
was
to
so hijinksy.
Oh my gosh, he's like jumping over boats and stuff like through the water, and they're trying
Waving
to chase
at
him.
him.
But after he loses them, he just goes back to his hotel where
Yeah.
he found them in the first place.
And then they become good buddies, right?
Yeah, that's the funniest part is like after they catch him and they're like, "You're going to jail, kid," and they're like, "No, I have to go," and they're like, "All right, we'll come with
Well,
you."
we'll take you home after you're done. It's like, okay.
They go to the fight with him and they're in the crowd cheering.
Yeah.
They're like, this Kumite stuff's pretty cool.
This is pretty awesome. We love this stuff.
I'm not going to get hurt.
What do you guys think about that final battle?
Oh, man.
It's classic.
Gosh,
I mean, I like how they raised the sides up, and
they made it
Yeah,
like a
man.
V.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that final battle
Badass.
made Jean-Claude's career right there.
that slow motion nut punch.
Hell yeah!
Well, that was.
Oh, that was
That was
before.
the big guy before
That's
him.
right.
yeah.
But,
yeah.
you
What
know,
was it, the sand in the eye.
That
or
was the
something? What
salt.
happened?
Salt.
Like
The salt.
dirty.
yeah, and it paid off the setup for him training to
Yeah.
do everything with the blindfold.
The
on.
flashbacks
Set up
of
and
the
pay
blindfold.
off.
Yeah.
Set up and payoff. There it is. This is a good movie.
Yep, well
Stamp of
structured.
It
approval.
has
Writing
everything.
approved. Okay, we're good.
It's got setup. It has payoff.
Okay, USA.
Okay,
That's my
USA.
favorite part of the whole movie is that guy saying "Okay, USA," giving him a
Racist.
thumbs up. Because I love it.
What about the hairstyles in this?
Oh, it's classic.
I mean,
Very
they're
80, very
gorgeous.
88.
Yeah.
They're gorgeous.
Like Gibb and Jean-Claude Van Damme's manager guy is just rocking that.
Oh, the mullet.
Oh yeah,
mullet, 80s
and
mullet?
I love a man with a bandana. Heck yeah! Come on over here, sweetheart.
Had a bandana on just yesterday.
Not on your face, on your head.
No, it was on my head.
And the female reporter who just hangs out in hotel lobbies trying to seduce guys who
Dude.
look like they fight to get information.
How
out
about
of
that
them.
initial, like, I get the girl,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
you get the girl? And she's just like, you guys.
For sale. That was. I'm like, you would
Classic
not be able to-
80s.
you would not be able to get away with that today. There's no way.
Yeah, like she had no say in it.
No,
Yeah.
not so. She's like,
They were like-
Jean-Claude's like, relax, I got this.
They're
Yeah.
like, you want
just-
the woman, you take the woman.
That's just a sad statement. They wouldn't be able to make this movie today. Well, fuck that.
I'm with
it's
you,
just like-
man.
it's so dumb.
People will be very upset on
I
Twitter.
don't care.
Twitter folks. Would
Oh,
be very
Twitter
upset.
people would be
Twitter
upset.
people, would be, like keyboard warriors, would be very upset.
Wow, I'm scared.
They basically said selling a woman is okay in this movie. They're
was also-
sexist.
Also, a lot of ADR in this movie because so many of the fighters, like you could barely understand them because
Yeah.
they didn't speak English. So like they were overdubbing their lines.
I love the
constantly.
main bad guy had like what 2 lines or something. Like all he said was like, "I'm gonna kill you," or "You're next."
You're
or,
next.
You're next.
But you could always tell
Well, he
it
didn't
wasn't
speak
his
English.
voice.
It wasn't his voice.
He didn't speak English when they filmed this.
Yeah.
He had very limited English.
Yeah.
And he was in that Bruce Lee movie Enter the Dragon. Wasn't
He
he?
knew Bruce Lee. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were friends.
Yep. Great movie. Any final thoughts on Bloodsport, the most popular Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, according to my Twitter poll with 180 votes?
It's definitely up there with like the classic '80s action movies like Commando and you know all the
You can't talk about 80s action movies without
Without Jean-Claude.
Bloodsport.
Yeah.